Shalom, shalom, my Haverim. Greetings, my YouTube mishpah. What's up, my people? And welcome back, friends, to another episode of Bible on a Bicycle.
What happened in the garden, my view is that a divine being, not an animal, not a member of the animal kingdom, who was associated with the divine council in some way, chose to oppose God's plan for humanity by prompting humanity to disobey God so they would either be killed or removed from Eden, which was God's council headquarters and, of course, God's abode and his family. Now, I'm going to compare Genesis 3 with Isaiah 14 and Ezekiel 28. And this comparison, I believe, will bolster the meaning of the word nachash as essentially a serpentine being, again, not a true member of the animal kingdom, who had, again, special knowledge, was lifted up in pride, and basically wanted to run the show, wanted to preempt God's plan and overturn it. Substituting what he wanted to be done, which meant getting rid of humanity, and that this being is described also with luminosity. Okay, that he was a shining being. There are several indications just in the word nachash that we're dealing with a divine being, and there are going to be some indications between these three passages that reinforce the point that we are in the divine council setting. We are dealing with a divine council member, not a member of the animal kingdom. Both of these passages, Ezekiel 28, 11 through 19, and Isaiah 14, 12 through 15, are about evil tyrant kings. Okay, one is the king of Babylon, the other one's the king of Tyre, whose pride is described in terms of an ancient story about a divine being who fell from paradise because of rebellion against a higher authority, against God. Now, this tale references Eden directly in Ezekiel's case. Eden is actually mentioned in Ezekiel 28, and indirectly, though I think clearly, in Isaiah's case. First set of comparisons, you'll notice we're comparing these three passages. In Genesis 3, we have the nachash, which I suggest in the previous video can legitimately point to a shining one, because nachash is the root, those consonants are the root of an alternative noun to serpent that means brass or bronze, and adjectively it has the quality of shining or luminosity. So I think I translated here shining one just to bring out the point that we're dealing with a divine being, because divine beings are frequently described as luminous, as shining. Okay, Ezekiel 28, we have a being that's described being adorned with precious stones. Now elsewhere, these sorts of jewels that are described in Ezekiel 28 describe the brightness of God's throne. So again, that's an indicator that we're dealing with a divine being, a special being here that has this luminous, brilliant quality. The being is called an anointed cherub, and I made the comment in the last video that cherub in Assyrian and Phoenician, and Ezekiel 28 has a Phoenician context, cherub is a throne guardian. But in Isaiah chapter 6, the throne guardian is a seraph, the seraphim, which, yes, on one hand, the term could come from the verb meaning to burn or to blaze, but seraph is another Hebrew noun for serpent. These are serpentine beings, and this is the way the Egyptians, which Isaiah 6 has an Egyptian context to it, these are ways that throne guardians are described with Egyptian imagery, Egyptian iconography. So a seraph and a cherub, seraphim, cherubim, are really the same thing. It's just different terms because of different cultural and religious contexts that are the backdrop to the biblical usage. So Ezekiel 28, we have an anointed cherub. We have a throne guardian. Again, Mashiach is the noun. Mashach is the verb for to anoint. But even that term can come from a Semitic homonym, a word that's spelled the same but means something different. It has a Semitic homonym that means to shine. What a surprise. Okay, so we could actually have a shining cherub here. You can note further, there's a phrase, seal of perfection, in Ezekiel 28. It is kotem tachnit. Now, in Semitic, at times the M at the end of a noun is silent, kind of like silent E on a lot of, English words. It's called the enclitic mem. If that's the case here, and there are several others that occur in Ezekiel, then we don't have kotem, which is a signet ring or seal. We have chet vav tav, which means serpent. Okay, it's another word for serpent in Semitic languages. So we actually could translate this serpent of perfection. In Isaiah 14, our clue that we have the same sort of orientation is Helel ben Shachar in Isaiah 14:12. The term literally means the shining one, son of the dawn. This is the Hebrew term from which we get Lucifer. Lucifer is the Latin Vulgate translation of Hallel, shining, again, something luminous. Lucifer, of course, Latin. We don't, so Lucifer itself doesn't appear in the Bible. You would see it in a Latin translation like the Vulgate, but just so you know where the term comes from. It's a luminous being. So here we go again. Moving on, we have the figure in question in Eden, obviously in Genesis 3. He wants to deceive Adam and Eve, and he tells them, look, when you eat of the tree, you're not going to die. You're going to become like one of the Elohim. And we know that it's plural because in verse 22 of Genesis 3, God says, hey, Adam and Eve have now become like one of us. Again, harkens back to the plural. They become like one of us, like Elohim in that verse. And so it's a very clear reference to the divine council setting that is Eden, okay, or that Eden is. Eden was the place of the council, and snakes, I'm sorry to say, were not members. Okay, animals were not members of the divine council, but divine beings were. And, as we just saw, sometimes those divine beings are described with serpentine imagery because they're throne guardians. Again, serpentine idea, seraphim. So, again, all of this should be sort of transparent, again, to someone who works in Semitic languages. I don't know why so many commentators just sort of don't see the links or refuse to see them. Ezekiel 28 specifically references Eden and calls Eden both a garden, like Genesis 3, and a mountain. Again, you get both of the divine counsel, divine abode points of imagery in this chapter. So Eden is the holy mountain of God, and this anointed cherub, or this serpentine figure, walked among the stones of fire. Now, stones of fire in Eden is another indication of cosmic mountain, divine council imagery. You'll see that a little bit clearer in Enoch, which is later, but I would draw your attention to the description of fiery imagery on mountains. Again, stones, mountains are made of stone. That kind of imagery associated with Sinai, which was, again, where God dwelt. Again, these connections, these image connections, are not accidental. They're designed to situate the reader, to transport the reader mentally into the presence of God. So the cherub or serpent figure is, again, on the cosmic mountain in a divine council context, and this figure fancies himself as God, claims to be sitting in the seat of God or the gods, and even says in Ezekiel 28, I am a god, or I am God. So you clearly have a figure whose lower level who considers himself in charge or ought to be in charge, and that's going to be his downfall. We don't necessarily know how that manifests in Ezekiel 28. In Genesis 3, it manifests by interfering with God's plan, God's will for humanity. Over in Isaiah 14, Helal ben Shakar, the Shining One, is described as wanting to set his throne on the mountain of God, the mountain of the divine assembly. He says, I will set my throne above the stars of El. And we know from passages like Job 38 that the sons of God are described as the stars of God. Again, it's clearly divine council imagery. It's clearly describing a being who wants to usurp authority that does not rightfully belong to him. Genesis 3 continuing, we get the curse, the outcome of the rebellion. The Lord God said unto the nachash, because you've done this, you're cursed more than all cattle and every created beast, so on and so forth. Upon your belly you shall go, you shall eat dust all the days of your life. Well, serpents don't actually eat dirt. There are critters that live below the ground that are below serpents, so if this is a literal member of the animal kingdom, we have problems there with the curse. We also know that all women, not even all humans and not even all women, fear serpents. We also know that all humans don't die when they're bitten by serpents. Serpents don't all die from head wounds. If you're going to take this literally as pointing to the member of the animal kingdom known as the snake, you have significant interpretive problems. And again, lots of people know about those problems. I would say that this is resolved by looking at it, again, spiritually and metaphorically, letting the imagery of a divine being with a divine council context who wants to vault himself above ordained authority. Let the imagery guide the interpretation of the curse. I would say that the nachash is cast down to the ground. Keep that in mind, the ground, because in Ezekiel 28, just look over to your right, in Isaiah 14, we have the word eretz. Okay, ground. Eretz is also sheol, the underworld. Okay, so I think what's going on in Genesis 3 is God says, look, you wanted to be above everything that is heavenly. I'm going to put you below everything that is heavenly. And in fact, I'm going to put you on the ground where beasts can tread on you. And even more than that, I'm going to put you under the ground in sheol, okay, the cosmic underworld. You will be beneath every creature because now your domain is the domain of death. This is what sheol was, the underworld, was the place of the dead. You are now Lord of the dead. You're not going to be head of the council, you're Lord of the dead. And again, this imagery gets played out in other passages later in the Old Testament. Ezekiel 28, again, the point is that this cherub figure is kicked out of the council paradise, the council headquarters, sent to sheol, sent to Eretz. Again, the term can mean underworld and does in other passages, and you have some references there. Isaiah 14, same thing. Sheol below was astir to greet your coming, rousing for you the Rephaim. The Rephaim, of course, denizens of Sheol in both Ugaritic literature and biblical material here. Again, talks about how you're fallen from heaven, O shining one, son of the dawn. Verse 15, you're going to be brought down to Sheol, the bottom of the pit. You're cast down to the Eretz. Again, if you look at this and let the imagery drive the interpretation, which is its point, you come out with a very consistent picture of the rebellion of a divine being in all three passages, the result of which is being cast down to the realm of the dead, either the dirt in which people get buried, all right, and that animals walk over, Sheol, the grave, or the cosmic underworld realm of the dead. And this is where, again, the great cosmic enemy is depicted in both Old and New Testament and Second Temple literature. Why? Because God is a God of life and salvation. His opponent is death. And in Genesis 3, this is the result of the fall. Humanity loses immortality. Driven out of the garden, away from the presence of God, you shall surely die means you have lost your immortality. You are now not going to be sustained in terms of this contingent immortality you have. You've lost your immortality. You're going to die. And the being that led to this catastrophe, I'm going to put beneath the human world, certainly beneath the divine world. They are now Lord of the dead. This is a very consistent theological picture.
Hope to see you here next time. And until next time, remember, Yeshua, Jesus loves you. And so do I. Now get off here, go ride your bike, and read your Bible.